We often tell ourselves, yes, I'm doing everything, but we're not. And that applies to everything, to YouTube, to business, to anything. So what are the fundamentals that you're missing? And fundamentals is, it's part of the foundation. That's the definition of fundamental, right? It's like the foundation. Foundation means if you don't have that, anything else you build on top of that doesn't matter.
Leon, thank you for coming on the podcast. Really grateful and honored for you to be here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
So I figured a good place to start would be with your mom and dad fighting when it was your birthday.
Oh, you go right into the deep end. Oh, where did you pick this up?
We do our research here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have some content online talking about this. Yeah, this is one of the interesting things that happened, or one of the interesting things that I learned when I went to Tony Robbins event. I'm a big fan. I'm a fanboy. Totally get it. Seems culty on the outside. And it kind of is. But one of the exercises that he walks people through is, what is the earliest memory that you have? Because that is usually the first trauma. Or it's at least an emotionally significant event. And yeah, you can go through all of the emotional significant events in your life and you find something that shaped you as a human being, right? Because in moments of heightened emotion, you usually make a decision that shapes the rest of your life, or at least a big portion of it, right? And that was the earliest memory that popped up for me, which was, yeah, my parents fighting while it was my birthday, and I wanted them to stop fighting, and yeah, they kind of ignored me. I want to say, though, I have great parents. I love my parents. They're amazing. So I don't want to be like, I have all this trauma, and I'm all messed up now. It's like we all have that, right? So what's your earliest memory?
I don't know. How does someone even go about identifying that?
So the way he walks you through that at the event is he asks you basically what is the earliest memory, and then people usually say, I don't know. And then he says, no, you do know. It's in your mind right now.
Wow.
And it may be something that you have, but you're like, nah, that's not really it. That doesn't count.
Yeah. What popped up for me right away?
See, something popped up. It's always
because I was talking about this earlier today, was my dad hitting me at Disneyland when I was like 3 years old or 2 years old.
Yes, right around that age. That's when kids start having memories.
Yeah. And my mom says to my dad, if you ever do that again, I'm going to leave you. And my dad never hit me again. And my parents are still together.
Great. Now, what's the meaning that little Danny attached to that? What did that mean, that event?
I wonder. But what comes to mind is like my mom's going to protect me. And that my dad could be a disciplinarian.
Interesting. So it may have had a good impact on you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any, I don't have any trauma that I know of associated with that memory.
Yeah. Interesting. Who knows? I mean, sometimes things can shape you that seem great, but you know, as a kid, you're kind of dumb. And you attach meaning that just doesn't make sense, and then you run with it for the rest of your life, or at least many, many years until you realize, wait, that's BS, right? For example, I've heard of stories of women who were told by their dads, hey, no one's ever going to love you as much as I love you. And they're like, oh, isn't that beautiful for a dad to say that to their daughter? But the meaning they attach to it is that I will never find a man who really loves me. And yeah, it's just funny. As a parent, you can do everything right. And my parents are amazing. And still there's like this little thing that happens and the child interprets it a certain way. And then it's like, you struggle with it for years.
Yeah. Well, for you, what got you into trying to become all you could be?
I think it starts for a lot of people as just pain, which I think is normal. It happens to a lot of people, unless you just happen to have friends that are getting into it and you slide into it as well, or your parents are into it. But for me, it was just, I was just unhappy. Yeah. Puberty was tough. Puberty was tough for like everyone, right? And then when I was 17, I got into it. Started watching videos online about meditation, goal setting, started getting into the gym. And yeah, it was like I was living this double life because none of my friends could really relate to it. And the things that I got more and more passionate about, I couldn't share with any of them because it would have been seen as dumb. Like meditation, what is that? Like, you know, or even when I started going to the gym, it was funny because some of my friends made fun of me because it's like, oh, you're one of those guys now. Oh, you're trying to get buff, huh? But then when they got drunk, they would come up to me and be like, hey, like I was actually thinking of joining you as well. You know, it's like,
Wow.
So first they make fun of you because they want to, you know, keep you in check. But a part of them also admires it, and I think every human being has that inside of them that they want to improve themselves. That I think it's the purpose of life. It's like that's the reason why we exist, is to grow and make the world a better place. That's just part of evolution, no? I don't know. So, yeah, that's how I got into it. Came from a place of pain.
What were some of your earliest role models?
Earliest role models. Yeah, I mean, Tony Robbins is a big one. He gets a lot of flag, especially nowadays in the mainstream where he's like being exposed as like snake oil salesman, but he's great. He's not a motivator. That's one thing he always says. It's like, I'm not a motivator. He's more of a strategist, and he's almost like a practical psychologist. You know, when you go to his life events, he's like, who is suicidal? And then people put their hands up, and then he works with them one-on-one and resolves it, right? Or at least does what he can. And doing all that while teaching the principles that he teaches and showing how they work live in front of thousands of people. So, yeah, he's a big one. He's a big one. There's also some entrepreneurs that I look up to. I mean, Jeff Hoffman is great. He's somebody who's built some really great businesses with, just by being a great leader and treating his people really well, having a great impact. He's just a good dude. Richard Branson, you know, as one of these people that achieves these crazy goals, but is also really happy. Yeah, those come to mind for me.
And those were the people you watched in the early days?
In the early days, no, not so much. In the early days, it was a lot of tactical stuff. There was this podcast that talked about launching an e-commerce business, and very tactical, all for free. Here's how you do it step by step. So I listened to a lot of that stuff. What else did I listen to? Yeah. A lot of stuff I wouldn't listen to now. Yeah.
Why do you laugh about that?
I don't know. It's just funny. I recently looked back at the goals that I used to set, and I'm just like, oh God, I did not know what to expect. Or, yeah, I overestimated the short term and underestimated the long term. You know, I was like, hey, I'm going to make $2 million a year by this age, by the age I'm now, and I'm not doing that. You know, I took a big hit, changed businesses, and now things are really challenging actually. But I thought I'd be further ahead back then, now. But then the goals in 3 years or 5 years, I'm like, they're too small, you know? Like things are compounding. Like this is exponential. So I think it happens to a lot of people when they start out. They're like, oh, I'm going to make $1 million this year. And it's like, no, that'll probably take you 3 years. But then I'm going to make 5 million in the next 5 years. It's like, no, you might make 5 million the very next year. You know?
Yeah, people's perceptions of what to expect is off because we don't know oftentimes. I remember like thinking I was going to lift weights, and after 1 year I would look a certain way. And I'm like, wow, I'm not at all close to what I want to become. But maybe after 10 years, that's more possible.
Yeah.
And I think our expectations when it comes to results are just off because we don't know.
Yeah.
So often.
Yeah.
I mean, talk to me about the goal you had of making it back to Australia.
Oh, yes. That's kind of like my origin story on the channel. So, long story short, I was traveling after high school in Australia. It was like a gap year where you work and travel. So I was working as a dishwasher. I was working in construction, and ended up meeting a girl, Australian girl. And then visa expired, and I told her, hey, I'm going to find a way back. I promise. should be doable.
How long did you know her?
That was probably 5 months, maybe
Okay.
6 months. And then, yeah, was back in Germany, which is where I'm originally from. And I was looking into how can I get a visa to get back. And I couldn't get a student visa because I couldn't study because it was too expensive. Because studying in Germany is for free and in Australia it isn't. Or I could get a good degree, but they only want certain occupations, and that would take me years to study in Germany and then get back there. And the only real way to get back there was to build a business online so that I could then travel there on a tourist visa. And then I gave myself a year because, yeah, anything more than a year would be ridiculous, and she'd probably find someone else and things would all just fizzle out between her and I. And yeah, that's when I started my first business. And that was brutal. Yeah, but it forced me into action. It was a year of a lot of pain, a lot of struggle, and developed insomnia because I had so much stress, and learned a lot. I learned a lot. It was very tough because it was very lonely. But yeah, I pushed through. And then by the end of the year, I made it back and I had a business. And the thing that seemed impossible in the beginning was now done. And I had achieved it. And it just created a completely new identity of what was possible and what I was capable of. And it was great. I think it's the biggest blessing that can happen to people is when things get so bad that you have to take action. You know, when there's like a health crisis and you think, why is this happening to me? Why do I have this autoimmune disease now? Why do I have, you know, this struggle now? Why am I getting kicked out of this country? Right? That usually forces people to transform, to hit a new level. And I think the worst thing that happens is that you are continuously in this limbo phase where things aren't where you want them to be, but they're not bad enough for you to take action. And I think a lot of people just live their entire life in that, where it's like, things are fine. You know, they're all right. It's like, I really want to do this and something I'm passionate about, but my job is all right. You know, or I'm not really happy in my relationship, but it is what it is, right? That's the worst. And I think I also have a low pain tolerance, which is one of my biggest strengths. Because when I'm upset with something and I don't enjoy something, I'm like, I don't want to do this, and then I change it, right? So some people, they just have really good long-term pain tolerance, and yeah, I don't have that.
Well, it's like if things are amazing, great. If things are terrible, also great, because then you change them. But if they're okay, you're just like, I don't know, like I'm not going to do anything about, and that's the scariest place to be. But going back to you in Australia, it was interesting to learn about through doing research that you got what you wanted, but it wasn't actually what you wanted.
Yeah.
What you wanted, you climbing that mountain, wasn't actually the top. And that was so fascinating because I think people will go through this in whatever they're trying to pursue. It's like they're climbing something, but then they realize like, oh, this isn't actually that great. So like, how do you deal with that situation of you're working tirelessly to get to that point of wanting to be in Australia and be with your girlfriend at the time? Then you get there and you're like, well, these people don't get me. I don't have any friends. You know, when you make friends, you're like, what the hell? What's going on? How come no one like doesn't want to drink alcohol? And
yeah.
So what was that experience like?
Yeah. So when I was back in Australia, the experience continued where now I had a business. Now I had changed all these habits and these beliefs around myself. And it was hard to find like-minded people, especially around the same age, because I was 21 by that time, right? And everyone else was in college. My girlfriend's friends were drinking and, you know, they were playing Fortnite. And yeah, I once again struggled to find like-minded people. And yeah, what usually happens to people then is when they achieve their goals and they realize, hey, this is still not it, is they go through more cycles of that, where they're like, oh, I need to have this first. And like, oh, let me just make more friends. Okay, then you get more friends and then that's great too. But then you find something else that's missing where you're like, I hate my business. So let me automate that and build a team so I have to work less, right? And then that's done and you're like, okay, let me find something I'm really passionate about. And then you find that, but then you're like, it's not really getting the results that I want, right? And you keep setting the goal 5 miles out and it's always 5 miles away, right? And I think that's something I've been slowly transitioning out of. Actually, a lot. I think I still slip back into it. But looking back where I was, it's like night and day. It's so different. It's very easy to think, oh, I'm still struggling with this, but it's gotten so much better than what it used to be because it's simply just retraining your brain. Because when you keep thinking, hey, I'll be happy when, then you basically build these neural pathways and this neural network that just fires that constantly. That's the default. Your first thought is always that because you've trained your brain to think that way. And if you can brainwash yourself to think that, you can re-brainwash yourself to think, hey, it's not that I'll be happy when, it's that I'm happy and, right? I'm happy and I have this goal, you know? And for me, it was just a lot of proactive gratitude journaling, just training my brain, hey, what's great now? And at this point, I catch myself all the time walking down the street and being like, oh, isn't this great? I'm here in the US. I finally made it, you know? This is great. Like, it just pops out of my mind, right? Usually it would be the other thoughts. Usually it would be, this is missing. And that's not good. And when can I finally do this? And those thoughts still pop up, but at least I know now what to do with them. And now it's oftentimes those thoughts that are empowering and just like, wow, isn't this great? And you even got to the point where, well, I'll start with this. I used to be so negative in that year, 2016, when I built that first business. I was so negative, and I could only see what's wrong. I could only see what's bad. And I would do these challenges, these 7-day no complaint challenges. And just full immersion, just like, I'm not allowed to have a single negative thought, no matter what happens. If I lose a leg, I'm going to be like, nice, I just lost 20 pounds. You know, I don't know. Just anything, even if it's delusional, I was not allowed to complain about anything. Everything had to be reframed in a positive way. You could say that's toxic, but listen,
what's more toxic? Yeah. Thinking everything's positive or thinking everything negative?
Exactly. Yeah. So I did that, and it got to the point now where a friend of mine told me, like, hey, Leon, you know what I love about you? You always see the good in things. Wow. You're always positive. And I'm like, wait, really? It's like, how so? And he's like, yeah, like whenever I'm struggling with something, you're like, oh, that's great because da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, yeah, I do that. That's right. And it's like, oh, wow, yeah, I changed that.
Wow.
So, and not to say that I'm like this positive guy now. I'm still very focused on a lot of negative things. But yeah, it's night and day where it used to be. And yeah, I think it comes down to just immersing yourself into these things. Like, what's your biggest struggle? What's your biggest bottleneck as a person in your business? And then just go in full immersion and hyper focus on that. Yeah.
I find that so often life is just about making friends with the voice in your head. And it seems like you were able to do that when you started to look at the bright side out of life. What were some of the biggest practices you did to make the voice in your head a friend versus a foe, other than the gratitude journaling and the 7-day no complaint challenge?
Let's see. I think one book that I talked about in a video, or that I explored in a video, or almost like discovered in a video, was No Bad Parts. Have you heard of that book?
I have not.
It basically talks about how there's not just one voice in your head. There's like multiple personalities that you have inside of you. And that was really insightful. And I got to dive deeper into that again, because I feel like a hypocrite talking about this, especially not today, because today's been a rough day. And even the last few weeks have been rough. The business has been challenging, and I haven't been on top of things, and I've been spiraling down into bad habits. And now I'm talking about like, hey, you should like be positive. It's like, I just want everyone to know, I'm not giving advice from a place of like, I figured it out. Far from that. I'm like, oh man, yeah, I really got to remind myself of that again. So I'm like learning from myself right now. Like, oh,
the advice we give is the advice that we most need to receive.
Yes.
A lot of the time.
Yes, that's exactly it. Because it's always funny when it's like, I struggle with something and I share that with friends and they're like, isn't that what you talked about in your video? That's kind of ironic that you struggle with this. It's like, yes. Like, I'm not in this video telling you like, hey, this is what you should do. I've come out on the other side and I'm on my high horse. It's more like, hey, I should really do this. And this has really helped. I'm thinking it might help you too. And then months later, I'm in the exact same spot, struggling with the same thing. But every time I learn something, I deepen my understanding of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm going to have to continue learning that. Like, I'm going to be talking about this in 10 years as well, where I'm like, hey, like, reframing into something positive and gratitude journal, you should really try that out. And I should really get back on that, you know? So, just as a side note, yeah.
So you said no bad parts.
Yeah.
As a recommendation to become friends with the many voices in your head or the personalities. Anything else come to mind?
Yeah. So actually yesterday, my friends and also the guys that I live with, so we're friends that are living together, we're all entrepreneurs, and once a week we help each other out. We do a bit of a mastermind and it's like, hey, what are we struggling with, right? And yeah, it's the exact advice I needed, which is what I'm giving now. It's like giving yourself compassion. I think especially for somebody like me who's very critical, I'm like, yeah, I give myself compassion, right? But not really. So I think just
what does that look like, giving yourself compassion?
I don't know. I think what I think it means is just looking at it from a third person perspective. Have you heard of Iliism?
No.
Iliism is journaling about yourself or even talking about yourself in the third person. Where it's like, Leon feels this way. He's really hard on himself right now. He's, you know, thinking about that. He's worried about this. Interesting, you know? And I think just taking that outside perspective is really helpful for me.
It's funny you mentioned the mastermind, because one of the things that you were looking forward to in 2019 so much was creating a community of people who you were inspired by, who were on the version of becoming the best version of themselves and who were on the path.
Mm-hmm.
And you've now created that in your living situation by the people you live with, who are all great guys and I've met, and also with Driven, the community.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'm listening to you in 2019 talk about this, how that's what you want more than anything. You want a community of people who are on the path.
Yeah.
And now you've created that.
Yes. That's probably the number one thing on my gratitude list is my friends. I have such amazing people around me. And the biggest thing to get there for me, moving to Austin. Moving.
I was just thinking that myself.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Found people similar to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just, you know, some people ask me like, hey, how do I find my like-minded people? I'm like, where do you live? It's like, oh, I live in Haczenka in Poland. And I'm like, never heard of that. I don't know how many like-minded people you're going to find there. So you probably have to move. You know, that's like the first step. And yeah, in 2019, it was challenging because I was waiting to get my US visa. And it was this one thing where I was like, if this doesn't happen, I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, I could move to Barcelona. I could move to Bali, to Medellin, or some other place where a lot of digital nomads or entrepreneurs hang out. But I didn't want that. I wanted to have a base where I can know, hey, I can stay here for a few years and build a foundation and build long-term friendships. Because one of the biggest goals for me is to have friendships like Joe Rogan, where he sits down on the podcast with them and he's like, remember 20 years ago? That was cool. I remember when you did that, and, you know, we're hanging out with these people. And I didn't have that, you know, because 2016, I left Germany. So all my high school friends, don't talk to them, don't see them. And it's like, this is a different life. All the memories that we created, I can't share with them because we don't really get together anymore. And that's like closed off now. I have my family, right? And we can talk about memories, and that's beautiful and amazing, but these are the only ones. Then I was in Australia for a few years. Same thing there. I'm still in touch with a lot of the friends there, and we meet up every once in a while, and that's amazing. But it's not a shared life. It's not like we're like going on this journey together. Although I am staying in touch with them, and it's beautiful. So it is great. It wasn't all for nothing. And I didn't want to, and then I was back in Europe, living in different places, and I didn't want to live that digital nomad lifestyle where you know people for a year or two, and then you don't really stay in touch. It's like, it's so lonely, man. I want to build a life with people together over the long run and be like, hey, remember 20 years ago? That's one of the biggest fears for me, is like ending up alone like that, where it's like, yeah, like, let's say I'm 60 years old and like all the people I'm around I've only met them 5 years ago. It's like, I don't know. Do you get what I mean?
I understand what you mean. That's never been a fear for me. I'm curious, why is that such a deep fear for you?
Because I think I just went through a few years where it was just really lonely. And I was always like, oh, I'm now in Australia. I'll have to make friends from scratch. Oh, my visa expired. I'm back in Germany. Will I make it back to Australia? I don't know, but I have to make friends from scratch now because I now live in a city in Germany and I can't relate to my high school friends anymore. Then I was back in Australia again. Oh, time to build friends again. Then 2 years later, I broke up with my girlfriend, had to leave the country within 28 days. It's like, oh, back in Europe, I have no friends.
I see.
And then in the US, same thing, right? But the US, this was easy. Here in Austin, it was easy. It was like that. And yeah, dude, friendships is the most important thing.
I think part of that is part of having friends to build things with for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years is knowing yourself and acting on the things that you are going to be doing for 20, 30, 40 years. So it's like you're creating YouTube videos. You might not be creating YouTube videos for 20 years, but you might be doing things tangentially related to creating YouTube videos. Similar with me in podcasting. And when you have people playing long games like that, who know themselves and know where they want to go, it's easier to befriend someone like that because they're consistent. And if someone's consistent with their passion, you can project forward their career, their path, whatever. And having that is so valuable. That's what life's all about.
Yes. I think so too. I think consistency of location and consistency of, mission.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Consistency of location, consistency of mission. That's really interesting. And then what was interesting is you said you wanted friendship independence or relationship independence, meaning that you wanted to go anywhere and have friends in that location.
Interesting.
And I thought that was an interesting concept because we think about like location independence or work independence, but friendship independence is a new thing. And you're creating that with Driven. Talk to me about Driven, how that community has come about and what are your takeaways on it today versus when you started?
Yeah. So this has been in the making for like 3 years. I think 2019, I was kind of dabbling in doing a podcast, but didn't really stick with it. And I wanted to build a community of like-minded entrepreneurs that had a business at a certain level and weren't just beginners. But what ended up happening was that I made friends with all these guys and I'm like, I don't want to monetize this now because you guys are my friends.
Makes sense.
Yeah. I'm like, all right, let's just be friends. So I solved the problem for myself. And then, I ended up starting a YouTube channel because I was looking for something I was passionate about. And
what year did you start the YouTube channel?
2020.
2020.
Late 2020. Late 2019 was another channel. So for 6 months, I had like a channel where I did like comedy skits. Mm-hmm. I did basically parodies of entrepreneurship. They were really popular at the time in my niche, but I'm glad I moved on from that. So end of 2017, that was then, and then end of 2020, that's when I started the main channel now. And then Driven, the community, we only launched it this year. It was always the plan from the beginning, but I just didn't have the focus for it. I was just like, let me get the channel off the ground because once we have exposure and once I'm good at YouTube, then it's easy to build a community. And now that's something that we're rolling out where we want to, build a community with a barrier to entry. It's free. So we don't want to monetize this. We don't turn this into a mastermind or whatever. It's just like, hey, we want to build a dope community and we want specific people in there. People who are taking action, people who are open-minded, and they're cool to hang out with, right? And right now, we're just figuring things out. The idea is that we have, just an application process. It's like, hey, who are you? How can you add value to this? See if they're a good fit. And then from there, just have a tight circle of people. Which may not be for everyone. But I think it's something for everyone to aspire to join eventually. And I want to at some point have like those people that are in the circle that we're building, have them live in different cities in the world and them putting together meetups and being leaders in their city to facilitate something for people. That'd be dope.
What type of people are you looking for?
I think just people who, I don't know, it's hard to describe. I would just say people who get it, But what does that mean? It's like It's people who take action. There's a lot of people who are, they're binge watching a bunch of stuff online, but they don't do anything. And it's like, everyone has the same challenge. Everybody wants to be around somebody who inspires them and challenges them. And nobody wants to be around someone that kind of drags them down, or, that they have to drag with them, right? So it's like, it creates this weird dynamic where it's like, everyone that, like, we asked our audience, hey, what do you want our community to look like? Or the inner circle that we're building. And they're like, hey, I just, I want to be really, I just hope there's people in there that are like taking action, they're inspiring me, and they're like maybe further ahead than me in the journey, right? And when everyone says that, it's like, all right, yeah, we're gonna have to see how to put that together. But yeah, I guess I think it doesn't matter so much of how far you are in the journey, but just how, like, whether you're committed. Or, whether you're taking action, or, yeah, because most people they're just in limbo. They just don't do anything,
Well, talk to me about the actual challenge, the first one. How'd that go? And are those going to be the same rules for every challenge?
We don't know yet. I think
Got you.
Driven 30 was a 30-day challenge that we put together for, our community to go through, which is 30 days of 6 habits that you take off every day. Similar to 75 Hard.
Andy Frisell coming on the podcast soon.
Oh, nice. That's exciting.
What are the habits?
The habits are daily mindfulness, exercise, journaling, clean diet, limiting your screen time, your phone screen time, to less than 2 hours a day, and then daily accountability check-in with an accountability partner or on social media. So I think we're keeping it consistent. There's some people that said it's too easy, and it definitely was for me as well, because I already do most of the things. And then other people are like, oh man, this is so hard, I can't do it, because they're not working out consistently yet. They haven't journaled before, they haven't meditated, and then doing all of those things at once is like, oh man, it's a lot. So yeah, it's challenging to find the thing that works for a lot of people, but I think we picked a good challenge there.
And what is, in an ideal future, what does Driven look like?
In an ideal future, Driven is a worldwide community with members in every major city in the world, where the community is first. We have amazing people coming together, and we make content that we enjoy. We have amazing people on the podcast, which we're launching. We make really inspiring videos that are really helpful. And yeah, we put community and giving value first. And then from there, I want to launch big businesses out of that. So it's almost like Gary Vee has this model where he has his media agency as like the machine that distributes whatever businesses he launches. And I just want to launch physical products businesses, or I don't know, maybe a software, maybe it could be anything, right? But out of that, I want to use that to launch really exciting businesses and partner up with entrepreneurs. And I just want to focus on making cool content. I want that to be my main thing. And I don't want to launch a course. I don't want to do coaching or any of that, because that all takes away from the one thing, which is just make cool stuff.
I love that. That's very MrBeast-like. And it reminds me of MrBeast calling you. What was that experience like?
Yeah, so he called me in 2020. I think, no, it was 2021, maybe. And then since then, we had a few more phone calls. Recently, we had another one a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, he just calls people randomly out of the blue. And it's always insightful. It's always interesting because he's very open, openly sharing what he's struggling with, what he thinks. He's very direct. And it was very exciting initially. The first call was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. And he really gave me a lot of confidence in my potential. And it was very insightful. Yeah.
Your first video blows up. The reason why he called you is your video about fake gurus.
Yeah.
And that video, you said that that's not representative of the type of content you want to make.
Yes.
And so a lot of people might be finding themselves in this position of they have a video that does really well, or they have a piece of content that does really well that they don't want to recreate or don't want to go down that route. What advice do you have for those people?
Yeah. What advice do I have for those people? I don't know. To be honest, I don't know the answer.
Well, how do you navigate through that?
So here's what I believe to know. I think it was a good step for me to get my channel out there. It is playing with fire a little bit, because when you go too much down that route, you build up a channel that is not in line with your long-term vision, which now I feel like I'm paying the price for, because the recent videos doing terribly.
Wow.
And I think it's because the videos are great. I think the packaging is great too. Could always be better, right? But I think it's solid. But right now, YouTube is pushing these videos to an older audience that is like, oh, these people like these videos, which I wanted to move away from. And now it's going to take a few more months, maybe, or a few more videos. Maybe we're just one video away where it picks up again, where YouTube is like, oh, wait, if we push this to this new audience, it's doing well. But the old audience is very much about money. It's very much about how this guy made $10 million in 12 months, how this homeless drug addict became a millionaire, how, you know, this guy built this business. And I just realized, hey, I don't want to make these videos about how this guy made money, how, you know, how, like, even just these entrepreneurial success stories. Like, I don't want this to be an entrepreneurship channel. It's more than that, right? So the advice I would give is just be very mindful of the long term. I think it can be helpful short term to get your name out there. But the more you feed into that, the more you deviate from the long term thing if it's not aligned. So yeah, you gotta be mindful of that.
Did you have a moment where it hit you where you were like, oh wow, I went down the wrong path here for views?
Was there a moment? I think while I was making the videos, I was like, oh man, this is working, this is great. And then it's fun too. But then once you start making a video that's about something else and it just completely tanks, you're like, why? Guys, it's me.
Love me.
I made a video. Like, I thought you liked my videos. It's like, no, they like the topic. They don't like you. You know? And it's like, oh, no. And yeah, that's when it hit me. I think, yeah, the first video that just tanked. I was like, what is happening? Oh no, it's because it's a different topic. But what if I want to make a topic about this? What if I want to make a video about this topic, right? Yeah. And now I'm just like sticking it through. I'm like, hey, long term, this is what we want to do. This is what I'm excited about. I can easily get to millions of subscribers very quickly, but it would be content I hate and I would burn out in a few years and then I would drop off. Like, I'm in it for the long run. I'm in it for the next 10 years and I'm thinking about longevity. And yeah, I think the sooner I start, the better. Because the further you go down the route, the harder it will be to pivot, you know?
Well, there are ways, I feel like, to balance entrepreneurship type content and self-improvement type content. One way to do that is to have a video with Bryan Johnson, for example.
Yeah.
Where he's somebody who's been successful in entrepreneurship, but he's also really trying to optimize his body and mind. What was it like to film with him?
It was interesting. So we just got back a few days ago. We shot with him. Oh, today's Thursday? Yeah, a week ago. So a week ago, he invited us to his house and we got an hour with him. So that's me, my team, and my friend Kyle, who's also got a YouTube channel, Kyle Got Camera. And it was interesting. I think that video blends perfectly the interest that I have, which is longevity, health, you know, just people doing interesting things and inspiring figures. And also he's an entrepreneur, right? So I think that will also capture maybe both audiences, and maybe this will be the video that will get the channel back up again. So we're not losing a lot of money every month, which we're doing now. I think, yeah, it was very interesting. He very much strikes me as a person that is going to go down in history books.
Wow.
You know, like in 200 years, people are going to look back and like, hey, there's this guy who did this research stuff on himself. And yeah, I think it'll be very interesting.
Why?
Because he just does something that nobody else does, but it makes so much sense. It's like, yeah, why hasn't anyone tried to like do this? Like extend their lifespan as much as possible, doing everything they can, using every study or science protocol that we have that we know has these effects and can help with longevity. Nobody's done that, and nobody's doing that. And I think him pushing the envelope on that, I think a lot of people are going to be watching, and I think he's going to be talked about a lot.
So I interviewed him episode 309, and I got that same sense of like, oh, this is like an Elon Musk type character.
Yeah.
Where it's like, he's different, but I didn't spend time with him in person. What was it like to actually meet him? What was his energy like? What surprised you about him?
Yeah, the energy was very much like, okay, this is a very smart person. And when they talk, when he talks, you know, when somebody really smart talks to you, you just have a sense that they thought about this very long and hard, and they say one sentence, and it's like there's so much meaning in there, and you're like, oh yeah, I understand the surface of this, but I know there's so much more behind it, so I'm just gonna nod and just pretend that I understand everything.
Yep. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. He's got a very logical mind. I'm curious what that would be like to have a mind like his, or a mind like Elon's. I think you hear many times that, you know, people like that, they're like, oh, you don't want to live inside my mind. It's very active. It doesn't.
He told me that. He told me that. Brian did.
Yeah.
That it was very difficult to be in his own mind. And part of the reason why he's doing the things he is because it's difficult to be in his own mind. And I asked him, what should somebody like me do who it's like, I don't know enough to be so pessimistic about the world? Like, what should someone optimistic like me do? And he's like, dude, just like spread that as much as you can.
Spread what?
Spread your optimism. Spread your love for life. Spread the kindness in your own heart. Because he didn't relate to that for a lot of his life. So I found that fascinating. It's like, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be, I've had depressed times. Have you had depressed times as well?
Mm-hmm.
Like real down? But like overall, my experience on life is like, this is fun. This is a good time. And so, you know, it's crazy.
I think we all have a role to play, you know, for somebody like him, it's doing what he's doing.
Yes.
It's like doing super smart people things, you know, and figuring that stuff out. For somebody like me, it's like, yeah, it's telling stories. It's spreading optimism or sharing challenges and making people relate, right? Making people feel like they belong. And for you, it's spreading optimism, right? Learning from people. So it's like, yeah, I think a lot of people, they try to be like an Elon Musk, or they try to be like this person. It's like, no, you shouldn't try to do that, because your nature is different and you could never do what he's doing. Yeah. At the same time, he could never do what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, like Elon Musk is not going to be a great storyteller. He's not going to be a great public speaker.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he shouldn't focus on that. He shouldn't try to be like Tony Robbins level public speaking. He should just deploy that into his strengths.
Yeah. So I guess the question becomes like, how does somebody, what path would you take to figure out your strengths if you were 20 years old?
I think journaling, a lot of self-awareness, and just reflecting a lot. So what I did, what really helped me, was trying things out and then just journaling on it. Like, did I enjoy this? Did I enjoy the topic? Did I enjoy the activity? Did I enjoy the purpose behind it? I think these may be the three things: the activity, the topic, and the purpose behind it, right? Because you can be passionate about video games, the topic, but if you're not passionate about the mission of the company that you're working for, or you're coding or you're writing the story, it's very different things, right? So some people are like, oh, I'm passionate about Star Wars. It's like, okay, what activity are you passionate about? Is it logical things? Is it numbers? Is it artistic things? Is it, do you like organizing projects? Do you like managing people? Or do you like big picture stuff? You know, it's like, I just went down the rabbit hole on these things, and I realized what I enjoy. And also taking personality tests is huge. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, this is not scientific. It's like, it's not meant to be scientific. It's still helpful, you know? Like, a lot of people discredit the Myers-Briggs because it can change over time, which, I don't know, I think that may be the reason why they say it's not scientific, but it's like, it's still very helpful. And yeah, you may answer some of the questions wrong and you get the wrong result, but it helped me a lot. Yeah.
Why? What about Myers-Briggs helped you?
Because it just outlines certain patterns, right? It's one of 16 personalities, and it's like, hey, you probably struggle with this. What you would probably enjoy are these things, and you're like, oh yeah, that does make sense. Yeah, now that you say it, yeah. And have you done the test?
I've done it. I did it in the last couple months, and I did it 3 years ago, and I was different in both senses. And I was like, oh wow, like maybe the podcast impacted this because I was more extroverted the second time and more people focused.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
Do you know what it was before and what it is now?
We could pull it up. I don't want to misquote it.
So you are ENFP.
ENFP, is that your guess?
Or ENFP or ENFJ?
Myers-Briggs is the...
Yeah.
I'm curious. Video
ENFP.
King?
I think ENFP.
ENFP is your guess?
Yeah.
What makes you say that?
Just the way you operate. So you're probably extroverted. You just mentioned that. N, I think you are more intuitive. F, you're more feeling than thinking. And P, you like to just see where things go rather than have a plan for everything. So
I wonder if that's correct.
It's called the campaigner.
I think that sounds right.
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
What is it? What is the test? 16 personalities is the name
16 personalities, yeah. So there's that one, and then also for the viewers, if you're interested in other ones, there's Enneagram. I haven't taken that one. I don't know if that's helpful. You can check it out. Kolbe, Kolbe. It's really good. It tells you how you like to approach work, like how you tackle things. There are 4 different modes. One of them is fact finder. The other one is implementer. Another one is follow through, and another one is quick start. I'm very high in quick start. So if you give me something, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brainstorm and I'm going to figure out how to innovate it, how to make it better. And then I just go pick big picture, right? And when you ask me about details and stuff like that, I can take details and summarize them into the key points, which also you can see in my videos, right? That's something I believe I'm good at.
You do that well.
But yeah, I'm not good at logistical things. I'm not good at software and technical stuff like camera gear and all that. Yeah, and these tests helped a lot for that. And just journaling a lot, right? Like what do I really enjoy? What have I always enjoyed as a kid? Asking friends and family what they perceive you being good at. Like that is oftentimes a really insightful thing.
Okay, so I got my results here.
Yeah.
So 3 years ago, I was a mediator, which is INFP.
Oh, so there's the introvert extrovert changed.
And then today, I'm entertainer, which is ESFP.
ESFP. So you're S. Interesting. Okay, I could see that. Yeah.
I don't know what that means. I don't know the benefits of it. I need to go and look and see the benefits of it. But
yeah,
interesting thing to think about, I guess.
Yeah.
And explore. And it's like, it's not something that I ever really considered or put too much weight in the past. But how should someone use a personality test most effectively?
I think with a grain of salt. Oftentimes your level of self-awareness is also really important for the accuracy of the test. Because I had other tests before as well. And then when I got honest with myself and got feedback from other people, I was like, yeah, they're kind of right. I'm actually more like this. And yeah, I think it's just continuous learning about who you are, what you really value, not just what you want to value, but what you actually value, you know? Finding your flaws, your biases, and yeah. What do you think is normal, but it's just like so autopilot, you know?
One thing that I found interesting that I believe you did, which was ask people something about yourself, like tell me something about myself that I might not know or that I do often. And you got in response that you seem very assertive, I believe. Does this ring a bell?
Assertive? Yes. Intimidating.
Intimidating. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. So what was the question and how did that land on you to be known as intimidating to other people when you had never
Yes.
considered that about yourself.
Yeah. How did that come up again? Yes. We were talking. I was talking with my operator Fernando. He's doing the operations, and he was talking to a mentor of ours who's helping us, or a friend of ours who's helping us, the team and everything. And one of the things he said to me, like, "Hey, Leon, you got to keep in mind when you talk to the team, like, you're an intimidating guy." I'm like, "What? I'm not intimidating." And then Fernando was like, "Oh, no, you are." And I was like, "Really? No, not really." And then, yeah, my girlfriend said the same. And I asked other people, and it's like, "Oh, yeah." I'm like, "What? I'm intimidating? I don't want to be intimidating. I want to be warm and forthcoming, but maybe it's just my energy. Maybe it's just how I come across." Yeah, so it's something I've been trying to mitigate, and I've been trying to get softer. But then at the same time, now I'm thinking, is that something I should even do?
Just lean into your strengths. If you're going to be intimidating, be one hard ass intimidating guy.
Yes.
Go Jocko on him.
Yeah.
Here you want to be fluffy and in the fields and skipping.
Yeah, but I start saying things like, "Hey, would you like to do this?" Instead of like, "Hey, I need you to help me with this." Right?
Yeah.
So still juggling it. I really need to get a mentor for leadership.
Why?
Because I can't figure it out myself. I don't have the time. So because I can kind of, because I don't know the answers to a lot of things. Have you seen the video, "Dicks, do you have to be one to be successful?"
No.
Really interesting video about this guy who, he basically starts in the intro with saying like, "Hey, all these leaders, they were dicks. They were just assholes." And he's this young director who's like making his first film, he's really excited, and he's like, "I'm going to be different than these guys." And he's really nice. He was warm and forthcoming to people and everything. And things were going all right, but, things were also kind of behind. And they weren't going as well as they should. And it got to the point where he was like, "Dude, we got to get this project finished. What is happening here?" And he basically got a short temper. And he was like, "Guys, we need to do this now. Like, get your shit together, make it happen." And all of a sudden, things got done. And he's like, "Oh, no. Do you have to be a dick in order to be a successful leader?" And I don't think so. If so, I don't want to be a leader, But sometimes you have to put your foot down. And when that is, I don't know. And I can test it out. And then over the next couple of years, I can probably be like, "Oh, 2 years ago when I did that was a huge mistake that cost us a lot of money and a lot of time and so much headache. And almost took our business down and we lost great people." Or I could just get a mentor and he or she just tells me, "This is my experience," so that's why it's the most important thing for me right now. It's like, we're four people now. And yeah, it's like the most important thing.
Dude, what's it like to have challenges with the business in this current moment? And like on the outside, bro, you have 500,000 subscribers. First of all, how does that feel? How does 500,000 subscribers feel?
Good. Yeah, I don't attach much meaning to that number anymore. It's cool though. It's really cool because finally, when I put something out, people watch. Even though right now it's not looking too good, but hey, people care. We launched the Driven 30, 20,000 people joined. That was amazing. So that's cool. It's like finally, what I put out there is being seen, because that wasn't the case for quite a while. So that's great.
And then you have 500,000 subscribers, but you're telling me I got challenges with my business right now.
Yes.
It's not going as well as I would expect.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
Yeah, so before the podcast, before we recorded, I told Danny, "Hey, I'm not in a good space right now to be really free-flowing and everything," and because we're currently going through some challenges in the business, and so right now, the videos aren't getting views. I strongly believe it's because we're currently shifting the content and the topics, because I've made a lot of stuff about this successful entrepreneur, right? But that's not what I want to continue doing. So that's what we talked about before, right? Is like what works versus what you want to do long term. And I want to shift more into topics that I'm really passionate about. Like, I don't care about how somebody made their first $1 million. It's like, I'm not at that stage. It's not interesting to me. I am really curious about, health, transformational stories in general, life stuff, happiness, fulfillment, those things, right? Like bigger picture things. And I think it'll just take time for YouTube to basically find the audience that cares about that. And maybe the old audience is also going to jump on that at some point again, maybe when they get older or when they face the challenges that we address in these videos. But yeah, right now it's tough because we are 4 people. We have payroll, you know, and we're hiring more. We're hiring another editor. And I've already gone into debt, borrowing money so we can survive. And yeah, we need to get views. Otherwise, it's not looking good. But I'll figure it out. I always have, and I always will. And yeah, I just need to give the team confidence that like, hey, I got this. I got this. That's also the challenging part as a leader is like, if you doubt yourself, the team loses trust. And who knows, maybe there's a way, you know, maybe if I get a mentor, they can tell me, hey, under these circumstances, it's okay. But when you have doubt as a leader, it creates doubt in the team. So when you have doubt, you better get rid of that, you know? And if you feel it in the moment, ideally you don't show it. So that's tough too, right? But no, I don't have doubt that we're going to survive. Worst case, I'm going to figure out a way to borrow more money. And one of the things I'm doing now...
Bryan Johnson's going to give you a little investment.
Yes, maybe, yeah. But right now, I may do some things on the side that I don't want to do because it takes away from the main focus. Like, for example, doing some business consulting or consulting for entrepreneurs and businesses that want to launch on YouTube and be successful. Because I believe in the educational space, I like to be humble usually. But you know how you're like humble on the outside, but on the inside, you're like, dude, I'm the best.
Talk your shit, Leon.
So
talk your shit, Leon.
I think I'm one of the top people to talk to when it comes to educational content on YouTube.
You are.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. But on the outside, yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
No. So on that topic, talk about some of the mistakes that people might make, because there's a lot of people watching this right now or listening to this who want to be YouTubers, who want to have 500,000 subscribers and who've maybe posted 10 videos, let's say, but they're not where they want to be. What advice do you have for those people?
So for people that have already made 10 videos, they probably have a good sense of what work is involved. They may underestimate the amount of work that is involved to make it great. It's like I think if you know how to make a video great, hey, you need to have a great hook. You need to have a great setup for the story. There needs to be desire. There needs to be, you know, relatability to the character. You need to know what the audience thinks about, what they feel. Like if you know all these tactical things, but you're just not hitting them, you probably just have to put in more work. Like some of the videos, like we spend literally 50, 60 hours of timed editing into the video, right? And it's like, okay, I'm going to set a timer for 2 hours and I'm going to edit and do nothing else. So it's not like, oh, 8-hour day roughly times this. No, it's just like measured time. So that's what my editor is currently putting in. That's what I put in when I was editing everything. And we have multiple calls going back and forth. For the intros, I script 4 or 5 different intros. I get feedback from multiple people, right? It's like, it just takes more work. And then for people that haven't made a video at all and they think they want to do YouTube, it's like, there's way more involved than you think. Way more. And doing it on the side, I don't see many people doing it well. Noah Kagan is doing it on the side. He has a massive business. He's doing it on the side, and he has a great team of people, right? So you can't do it if you know how to hire well. But even then, yeah, you got to have a really great people, like Noah Kagan does. And you also got to know YouTube yourself. Like it's because it's so competitive. And if you don't put in full time, then there's people that do, and they eat your lunch. And you're not going to be able to compete with them unless you have a unique perspective. Or let's say you're an Alex Hormozi who's built $100 million businesses. He can make content that I can't make because I don't know what I'm doing, and he does. So he's the expert angle, right? But yeah, I think people underestimated that. What I hate the most is when people ask me, "Hey, what do you do full time, Leon?" I'm like, "Look at the YouTube video. This is all I do. I'm working day and night." I mean, I'm not working day and night. I'm pretty balanced, or at least I'm getting 8 hours of sleep. I'm not super balanced right now, but It's like, yeah, they have no idea. They think this is like a side gig that I'm doing, and I have like my e-commerce business on the side. It's like, no, this is all I do. This is all I think about. It's like, it's painful sometimes, but that's the reason why people don't succeed at YouTube, is because they think it's so much easier. Like, it's so hard. So, yeah. And going back to the challenges, I mean, yeah, right now, being in the challenge is tough. But I think this is just life testing you. You know, you really want this. And right now, I think we're losing 15K a month because no money's coming in, or very little. And the sponsors look at our recent videos, they're like, hey, they're not getting views, so we'll pay you a few grand for an integration. It's like, you know, I'm not going to put an integration into this video for a few grand. You're not touching my video, you know? It's like, so it's tough getting sponsors right now. We're losing 15K a month maybe. And yeah, I'm going to have to figure something out. But I think worst case, I can always do consulting on the side, which I don't want to do, but that will only be for established entrepreneurs and businesses that have the financial means to do so. I don't want to do coaching for my audience. I don't want to do courses or any of that, because I think it would, that's not who we are. Like, we're not coaches. We're not experts. We just make content and take people along the journey. But yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
I'm sure you will. Talk to me about your dad going into debt to help you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. That was funny. That was my first business. It started to work, and I was basically talking to different people, friends and family. It's like, hey, I basically made this plan. Hey, if I was able to launch 3 products in the next 3 months, I could make 10 times the amount that I thought I could initially. Because I did this journaling exercise where you take your goal, you times it by 10, and you ask yourself, in theory, what would have to happen for me to achieve that goal? It's like, oh, in theory, I'd have to launch 3 products. In order to launch 3 products at once, I would have to have this amount of money, right? I don't remember what it was. And I didn't have it. And it's like, okay, in theory, what would I have to do in order to get that money? And then I was like, okay, I could sell all my belongings, which I did, all the old video games that I had, my electric guitar, just anything I could get my hands on, I sold it. I took a job at a nightclub, like serving drinks and stuff. That was horrible. It was terrible, but it got some money in. And then it was also like, yeah, borrowing money. I never wanted to borrow money. But yeah, I went to friends, family, and just like, hey, look, I've got this business. This is working. And yeah, my dad, he was in the red at the moment with his own business. And he was like, hey, but I believe in what you do. And he gave me some money. And yeah, I got the money together that I needed, and then slowly started rolling things out, reinvested everything. And yeah, all worked out luckily. And yeah, paid it all back. And yeah, I'm glad those times are over, man. That was tough.
But
I put myself in such a situation, and I always do this, but I think that's why I perform best. I put myself in a situation where I have to perform. Yeah, it's funny because my channel, you know, when it took off right before I almost ran out of money again from my previous business there, where I was like, oh, I have another 4 months. And yeah, I made it happen right before then. But it always works out that way. So it's like, yeah.
Do you feel like you're in a similar situation now?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, it's definitely the beauty about challenge that it forces you to step up. It forces you to, you know, look for solutions you haven't considered before. So in the last few weeks, there have been so many lessons in our business of like, we need to do this. Like, okay, just looking at patterns of when did a video work, when didn't it work, right? And it's just simple things like asking for feedback on titles and thumbnails more, and tracking that properly, and, you know, asking a bunch of people and getting a rating from 1 to 10, and then looking at the data. That is a must for the videos. And when we don't do that, they don't perform that well. And it's like, why did we stop doing that? You know, it's like now we're like nailing the basics again. And yeah.
That's just a great practice for any YouTuber or anybody creating content, is like sending it to people before.
Yeah.
And just getting that initial feedback. So often we think we know what people want, but we have no idea unless we ask them. And especially if they're they're professionals in their own right, which your network of people are the best in the world at YouTube. So it's like, that's a good pool to pick from.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You mentioned sleep before, and I know your Oura Ring is very close to your heart, and your sleep score is very important to you.
I might take it off for a month.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, tell me about, one, how do we get better sleep? And two, why are you taking it off?
I'm taking it off because I just want to see if it helps not looking at it. I know what to do. You know, everyone knows what to do for sleep. Maybe there's a few things, a little nugget here and there, which they can all learn, especially from my buddy Kyle. Kyle Got Camera is his YouTube channel. He's the sleep expert. So for any detailed stuff, go to him. But if you're not nailing the basics, that's basically the gist of the sleep video. Is like, all these years, for 7 years, I struggled with insomnia. All these years, I told myself, there's something wrong with me, there's something wrong with my body. I just can't get good sleep. What I know now is that when I get bad sleep, it's because I didn't nail the fundamentals. And it's funny when I talk to people about this, they're like, oh no, I'm pretty good with my habits. Like I walk, I exercise, I don't eat too late before bed. Like all these fundamentals where it's like, if you do them, you're going to sleep badly. And they say, no, I'm pretty good with that. I was like, okay, you said pretty good. You didn't say you nailed these. So do you have a wind down routine? I mean, sometimes, yeah. Okay. When you don't wind down, when you don't have a 1 hour wind down routine, you probably sleep badly. And then, okay, do you have a consistent wake up and sleep schedule, right? So when you wake up and go to bed, like, no, I'm pretty good with that. It's like, it's usually like, I mean, sometimes I, wake up sleep in for like an hour or two maybe. But it's like, dude, that is actually really important. A friend of mine was saying that, yeah, I get like 2 nights of good sleep, and then for some reason I get bad sleep right after. And it's like, yeah, it's because he gets good sleep because he sleeps in, and then from then his sleep schedule is not consistent, and then the next night he sleeps badly. And it's like, we often tell ourselves, yes, I'm doing everything, but we're not. And that applies to everything, to YouTube, to business, to anything. So what are the fundamentals that you're missing? And fundamentals is, it's part of the foundation. That's the definition of fundamental, right? It's like the foundation. Foundation means if you don't have that, anything else you build on top of that doesn't matter. So any sleep supplements, any YouTube tactic that you use to get your video to be picked up, any little software trick that you have for your business, doesn't matter. If you don't have the fundamentals nailed and they're strong, anything beyond that is like, you're wasting your time. So I heard this story once from this guy who went to this event about marketing, and there was this marketing genius talking about the advanced Facebook strategies and how, you can run ads to these people now, you can target this with AI and whatever, right? And everyone was really excited about that. And later on, he went and sat in the audience, and there was a breakout room. There was once again a talk. Actually, I've totally messed up the story. Let me start that story again. There was some sort of marketing expert. He was giving a presentation, and then he sat back in the audience. Then there was a breakout room. One room was about the advanced stuff with Facebook ads, AI, and all that. The other one was like 101, the fundamentals. And that speaker that everyone looked up to, who then was in the audience, he went to the fundamentals room. And somebody asked him, why did you go into this room? Like, you know all this stuff. And he basically said, if there's one thing I want to nail, it's the fundamentals. It's always that. It's like, it's almost like cheesy on my channel because this always comes down to that. It's always this, right? And when we were with Bryan Johnson, I also asked him, hey, what are the things that people can do at home? What are the fundamentals? What did he say? All the shit we've always heard about already. Sleep, diet, exercise, relationships, minimize stress. If you do those, you're going to live very long. That's like the ultimate longevity hack. Sleep is number one. And it's like, you go to a doctor and you have a pain in your back and you're like, oh, tell me what to do. It's like, oh, you should exercise more. It's like, oh yeah, cool, okay. Next thing, like, tell me what to do. It's like, that's it. Like, I can give you a pill or whatever, but yeah, it's always about that.
But you did say one thing that is part of the fundamental that I was curious what exactly it means. What does the wind down routine entail exactly?
I think it can be different for anyone, but you just got to have some sort of consistent routine that ideally gets you into the parasympathetic nervous system, right? Or yeah, gets you into parasympathetic. So all day you're in your head, you're stressed, but you want to get into your body. And yeah, what you can do is yoga nidra, NSDR, as Andrew Huberman calls it. Mindfulness can be really good. For me, it gets me more focused. So it's not great for everyone, I think. Reading fiction, like just anything that gets you away from that. And yeah, obviously turning off screens as well.
I have a lot of trouble going to sleep at night usually. And what I did last night, and this is a N=1 experiment, but when I've done it in the past, it has worked out as well, is I shut the lights off and for 45 minutes in bed meditated. And I went to bed right almost immediately after. And it made me feel so good. So is that something you've done as well? I've heard mixed reviews about meditation right before bed.
Yeah. I think some people, they get more focused through that. That's what happens to me. But it depends on the meditation. I mean, if it's something where you do a body scan, I think that works for me too.
Interesting. Cool. And then one of the last things I want to talk to you about was you went to Sedona and increased your IQ by forgiveness.
Yes.
Dude, this is a video I sent to my friend Tej Dosa. I was like, yo, you got to check this out.
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. I mean, this is another video where it's like we spent so much money on that video, so much work, and then it got 70,000 views, and we're like, oh, wow. We just lost tens of thousands of dollars with this video.
Damn.
But it's like,
if it makes you feel any better, it brought me a lot of joy, and it's linked below,
awesome.
as well as all the resources we talked about.
Yeah. So that was really interesting. It was the Biocybernaut Institute is what it's called. It's a training that a lot of celebrities have done. Like Michael Jackson was there, Tony Robbins, a bunch of other like billionaires that aren't in the public, but their clients have been, really, really interesting. And yeah, it's basically a 5 to 7 day program, depending on which one you take, where you increase your alpha brainwaves through direct neurofeedback. So they hook up your brain to this neurofeedback device that basically plays the sound of your brainwaves. And when you're increasing your alpha, the sounds get louder, right? And you have like sounds in all these different directions. So you have them in the back, you have them in the front, all these different brain areas, right? And so your brain almost learns automatically that, oh, when I do this, it goes up. And then through direct feedback, you just accelerate learning like crazy. Like they even had monks, Zen masters go through the training, and they were like, wow, this is supercharging it. Because if you meditate for an hour, you don't even know if you're doing it right. You know, you don't even get any good feedback. You're like, am I doing this right? But if it's immediate, it's like, oh, okay, this is what I need to do. And as they were studying more and more about this is a facility that's been around for multiple decades. I think Dr. Hart, the founder, I think he started it in the 1980s. What they found was that the best way to increase alpha, which is the brainwave state where you are calm and relaxed but focused, and any problem can be solved. They found that the best way to increase alpha and get into that state is forgiveness. And I was like, oh man, it's pretty woo-woo. It's like pretty spiritual and stuff. I thought we were here to increase our IQ, but that's what we did. And we went into our past, grudges that we were holding with people, with ourselves, a lot of stuff with ourselves too. And it was like therapy. And we're just going through a forgiveness protocol in the chambers, in the neurofeedback rooms, right? And it was very interesting. It just makes you think how important it is to let go of certain things and not hold grudges, because that affects your performance today. It affects not just your performance mentally or cognitively, but also your immune system is suppressed. Like, what's the book called? Is it Radical Honesty?
By Brene Brown?
Maybe Radical Honesty. That's, I think, a different author.
Radical Forgiveness?
Now, there's a book called Radical Honesty, but there may be another book too that talks about this. I don't know where it's from. I'm always terrible with sources. I'm just like, I'll pick this up somewhere, the story somewhere from anyone. I don't know.
The best stuff stays.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. But basically, when somebody forgives somebody that they held grudges for 20 years, immediately the immune system shoots up.
Wow.
And this whole time it's been suppressed.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, don't quote me on that. I don't know. Anybody look it up maybe. But it just makes sense. It just makes sense. When you hold grudges, it's painful. It's stressful. And stress lowers your immune system. So, yeah, the forgiveness stuff, really interesting. And even applying that now, if I get angry at someone, I'm like, okay, time to forgive them, right? Or if I'm worried about something, another protocol that they sent us through is basically meditate on the worst possible outcome and how terrible it is, and then just increase the pain. And then from there, you switch to alpha.
Wow.
You start with gratitude, you start with joy, and it just vanishes. And then, yeah, it changes your brain.
So on the forgiveness piece, one thing my friend Tej Dosa, the first episode of this podcast, the person who I sent this video to, one thing that he told me to do, or he's tweeted about in the past, is before you go to bed every night, forgive who you need to forgive that night while you're in bed, and watch if you sleep better.
Oh, yeah.
And like, see what happens for you. And sometimes you might be forgiving yourself and for not completing certain things. Sometimes it might be a person who rubbed you the wrong way. But if you can just give forgiveness, it leads to you to sleep better. At least it has for me. And then on that second piece of imagining the worst case scenario, I always do this. You know, I always like imagine a parent dying or a grandparent, or just like sitting with that. What is that like? What does that feel like? And then living in that reality. And then when you see them, you're like, oh my God, you know, it's really, it's really impactful.
Yeah.
But for you, who were the people that you needed to forgive?
Yeah. So I did the training with a friend of mine, and for both of us, it was a lot of family stuff, right? Brothers, sisters, parents, a lot of it for myself. That's probably the most. Yeah. And also for my friend. So I think that's probably very common for people. Is that they're at war with themselves, or with parts of themselves, which again, No Bad Parts, really good book. Check it out. Yeah, a lot of that.
Which parts of yourself are you most at war with?
For me, there's definitely a drill sergeant. And then there's also like, one of my vices is I guess it's a bit broad, escapism. Like just like avoiding things or like numbing myself. But I think everyone does that. And I think everyone has, not everyone, but a lot of people have these two parts, which is like the part that likes to escape and avoid is like that, almost like the inner child part, right? That just wants to have fun and doesn't feel safe. And, you know, it's like, I don't want to do these hard, challenging things. I don't know if I'm ready for them. And then the drill sergeant, which is like, you got to do this, you know? And that's like this dynamic, but these are always at war. But there's a higher self that you can have where you can sit them down and be like, hey, let's have a conversation, guys. You know, and really listen to these both parts. And yeah, a lot of that was done in that brain training as well, where you go through this process in your mind where you basically have a court set up with 3 untouchable figures. So these are whatever you want it to be. It could be a glowing light, could be God, could be Jesus, could be Krishna, right? And then whoever you are needing to forgive. It's basically like a court setting where it's like, hey, I'm charging this person with this what is it called?
Crime?
Yeah, crime or whatever. And then from there, you basically see it from their perspective. You decide to forgive them, and then, yeah. So it's like this whole process that they take you through, which is really helpful. I think you can go through it yourself as well. I think you don't need this process, but it's definitely a good one to go through.
What were you feeling after?
You want to end up feeling like you've cleared everything. Because by the end of it, you ask the judges, hey, do you think I have anything left to forgive? Or do you think I'm done with this? And if they say yes, you can move on. But if they're like, no, you have to go back and do the process again. But yeah, by the end of it, you feel just you feel what it feels like to be an alpha, which is just a state of like content and peace and happiness and love, and your cup is overflowing. You're like, I'm happy and I just want to make other people feel good and just share the love and share the positivity, and yeah, that's what it feels like. Yeah,
it's a beautiful place to operate from, and I wish more people got to that point. And how I got to that is through meditation, and that's why I talk about it so often. But I guess brain training in Sedona is another way. Yes,
or just forgiveness
exercises,
at home.
Yeah,
like you don't need to do this training. I think it was very helpful. It accelerated it. But the beautiful thing about most of these things is you can do it all at home for free. Like you have all the resources, and yeah, that's what I want to share with people. And yeah, alpha is, the more you can operate from alpha, the better. Like if you have a important conversation coming up on the phone with someone, before that, put yourself in alpha. The conversation is going to go very different. If you're having an argument with someone, with a significant other, or whomever, you put yourself in alpha and you forgive them beforehand, you come from such a different place that it just totally changes the energy of the conversation. And the outcome is way different. I think this is literally how wars are stopped. Because it's usually just two guys at the top who can't agree on something, and then, people are dying. But it's like, brainwaves, man.
So the best way to drop into alpha is to forgive and meditate.
Gratitude. And meditate, yeah.
Those are the best ways.
Yeah. Like the shit that we've already heard.
I mean, some people have heard it a lot of times. Some people are hearing it for the first time. I think that sometimes when we're in this world that we're in, this Austin world particularly, it's like we know we're on the world is going to be in Austin. In 10 years, the world will look a lot more like Austin than it does today. I believe. Like there'll be more saunas, cold plunges in gyms. There'll be more podcast studios in the world. I genuinely believe that.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe we're just on a high horse and we're like, they're all gonna be like us one day. We're like so far ahead. But hey, I agree where you're coming from. I agree too. Yeah. It's just people from other places are like, what is Austin?
Come, enjoy. I think it's just such a beautiful place of greater understanding and consciousness that I don't see in other places. So
yeah,
that's why I believe that will get spread more and more.
Yeah.
But dude, I like to end these podcasts with a challenge.
Okay.
Or I ask the guest a challenge
mm-hmm.
where someone's listened to all this, and what is the action that they should take right after the episode is over or the following day to make their life an even better one? Does a challenge come to mind?
Ask yourself, what am I currently avoiding in my life? Because that's usually a pretty good way to go. Whatever we most avoid is usually what leads to the biggest growth. And maybe just journal on it. What am I currently avoiding? And just write it down in theory. You don't have to take action on it, because if you believe you have to take action on it, your brain puts blind spots in place. But if anything could be resolved automatically, what are you currently avoiding in your life? And that could be fixed, right? It's like, yeah.
I love that so much. What are you currently avoiding in your life?
Damn it, I know you and I. I don't want to talk about it. What am I currently avoiding in my life? I think I really need to put less on my plate. I'm doing too many things. I need to cut some things down. And I don't want to do that. I want to get everything done, but it's just ineffective. That's one thing that comes up. Another thing I have been avoiding is silence and sitting with my own feelings. Just keeping myself busy. Yeah, I had a challenging few weeks. and just having more silence, slowing down. Vacation. I have a vacation coming up. Just 4 days. But it feels so counterintuitive because I have so many things to do. But I know that this will clear things up. That things that seem complicated and complex and overwhelming, once I take a few days off, it's like, oh, it's actually very simple. Boom, boom, boom. It's this. So it's one of these counterintuitive things. But yeah, these are 3 things that come to mind right now.
Well, on the silence piece, one thing that Brad and I just started doing today, and I'll cut this out of the episode if Brad doesn't want to talk about it, but last night we made this agreement to do 60 minutes of meditation for 60 straight days.
60. 60.
60.
Nice. I've done this before.
Yeah, Naval's challenge. And I did it in June of 2020, and it was tremendously helpful, and it's why this podcast has come to be, is because of that challenge. And I'm doing it again. Today was day 1.
Nice.
And I invite you to join us if you'd like, but no pressure, of course. And I will cut it from the episode if Brad doesn't want that public.
Okay. I love that. Because I've been thinking about this. I've been wanting to do this in my vacation. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. This is another thing to commit to, though. It's like,
right.
I'm careful what I commit to because
yes,
that's usually where the problem comes from, where I'm committing too many things and
yes.
I'm like, oh, no, I have to do all these things. So I can't commit yet, but I think it's great.
Respect. And, one thing I admire about you is just how much you push yourself and how willing you are to really get everything out of life. And that was a clear theme from doing research for this conversation and just knowing you as a friend, was just your willingness to go above and beyond for yourself. And sometimes that means extending your own boundary further than you can imagine. And sometimes that means going too far. And, maybe you're in one of those phases where you've gone too far, committed to too many things. And I just want to let you know that that's one of the things I admire about you deeply. The fact that you're willing to go there, because so many people aren't willing to go there and they're scared to go there, because who you could become is greater than anything you can imagine. And you're willing to look at that person in the face, the ideal, and actually say, I want to be that person. And that takes courage. So thank you so much for being you, man.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And thanks for doing this podcast. I now see what the purpose of this show is. Because you mentioned, hey, my goal is to have you learn something about yourself. And I think that happened definitely today. So thank you for what you do.
I appreciate you tremendously. Your YouTube channel linked below, your Instagram linked below. Anywhere else we should send people to connect with you further?
We're hiring. So if you're a savage, apply. And if not, then don't apply.
Where should we send people to apply?
thedriven.co. So that's the DRVN.co.
Cool. I was kind of expecting you to be like, you know where to find us.
You know where to find us.
But so great having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.